week. We are going to be getting started now. Ellen is here to share with us how to quickly run marketing experiments and find the big wins. So she's going to be taking over in a couple minutes here. For those of you that haven't participated before, this is West Slope Startup Week. This is round 2. Round 1 was awesome last year. I'm sure round 3 will be even more amazing, so stay tuned and find ways to get involved for next year and for the rest of this event, because there are still plenty of sessions happening over the Tuesdays and Thursdays to come in July. A big thanks to our sponsors, including USA Bank, and then also the communications track is sponsored by my agency, Mountain Dog Media, which is really exciting. This, as I mentioned, this is going to be how to quickly run marketing experiments and find the big wins. So I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Ellen. Thank you so much for coming out today to share with us.
Rock and roll. I'm going to pull up my screen here and we're going to dive right in. It's definitely going to be a full 45 minutes. I want to make sure we leave space for questions and a lively conversation. For our session, I definitely have some slides, but you're going to see me jumping around. We're going to go into some spreadsheets as well and really try to get at the meat of running marketing experiments. All of this material you guys will have access to if you find it helpful. It's all free. We'll send it to you so you can use it. That being said, I'm going to dive right in. Stating the obvious as well, I think figuring out how to find traction and scale your company is really hard. And it's hard because there's no exact recipe. There's no playbook. There's nothing to say, okay, you have 0 customers now. Here's exactly what you do to get to 100. You have 100 now. Here's exactly what you do to get to 10,000. There's no playbook. There's no secret sauce. That said, it's definitely not rocket science. I think when it comes to marketing, it's easy to avoid mistakes. It's easy to avoid headaches. It's easy to avoid wasted money with a solid process. And at Tough, that's what we've been focused on for the last couple of years. So we partner closely with fast-growing startups to figure out that very question. How do I go from 0 to 100? How do I go from 1,000 customers to 10,000 customers? And I've listed some fun Colorado companies on here. Hopefully they jump out to you. We've got Quiet Cat, we've got Cloud Campaign, we've got Beer Drop, we've got Felt, Fresh Monster. And the thing I'd like to highlight is these are really diverse companies. Quiet Cat, $7,000 e-bikes, Cloud Campaign, B2B SaaS, Beer Drop, craft beer, Colorado craft beer subscription, Reverend, Vision, Felt, these are apps. And this process that we're going to dig into today is the same process we've used with every single one of these businesses. And it's because this process, again, it can scale across industry as well as company size. So that's the focus today. We're going to leverage a been there, done that process to help you figure out what marketing channels are going to help me grow the fastest. It's a 3-step process, and it starts with filling out the growth marketing framework spreadsheet. It's a spreadsheet we're going to jump into. Then we're going to look at tactics that you can try out yourself, tactics that are most likely going to contribute to your bottom line. And then we're going to start lean. We're going to look at how you scale up, how you kill things that don't work. And by going through these 3 steps, essentially what you're doing is you are building yourself a growth marketing strategy. And all that is a prioritized to-do list of what you're going to do first that's most likely going to contribute to your business. It's most likely going to bring you from 0 to 100 to 100 to 1,000. It's just a list of action steps that you're going to take to grow your business. And I think the reason that's so important, and I pulled in a quote that at Tough we go back to all the time, but Dave from Privy says, you know, before 10 million in revenue, you really don't need more than 2 good marketing channels. But so often it's easy to chase. It's easy to get distracted. It's easy to figure out, okay, I want to test Facebook and I want to test Google and I want to test YouTube and I need to do email and I got to get my website up and running. There's all of these components swirling around. But really you just need to hunker down and find those 2 channels that are going to help you bring in more customers or users or leads. Focus down on those and scale that up. So he talks a lot about don't be the Cheesecake Factory, be the burger. And I think it's easy to look at that and kind of like nod your head and agree. I think where it gets really tricky, where marketing comes into play, where having your priorities outlined comes into play, is how the heck are you supposed to know which channels are right for your business? Is it YouTube? Is it Facebook? Is it email? Like, what is that combination of channels that you should put your focus and time as a founder into? And that's where a process comes into play. A process is going to help you identify those channels quicker. And it's going to help you make sure you're not running around with your head cut off, because that gets exhausting and tiring and confusing, and you want to abandon marketing altogether. So we're going to go through this process, and I have some examples, and we're going to use a core spreadsheet that's actually filled out to bring that to life. Let's start with this first step. So our spreadsheet, I'm going to pull up Google Sheets in real time. So we call this Tufts growth process. This isn't new. We didn't come up with this all our own. We've definitely made some updates to it, and it has 4 core tabs. So you have your personas, you have the journey, you have tactics, and then you have your experiments. Before we jump back into the slides, we're going to focus on these first 2 tabs, probably the most important piece of the puzzle, and that's why they're listed in this order. The first one's your personas. So if you're a founder or on a small team today, you probably have personas. You know who you're selling to. You know who your target audience is. And if you're going to use this spreadsheet and you're going to go through this process, I dump them into here. And I think the biggest thing that we see, the most common mistake that we see small business owners make, startup founders make, is that they don't get super specific about who their target market is. They say, my product's for everyone. My app, it's for everyone. My shoes, they're for everyone. And you've got to get really specific for this process to work, to keep you streamlined, to get to the tactics that are going to work. You want to get really specific about your customers. And so some of this stuff is pretty basic. So we have 3 here. You can go beyond 3. We never go beyond 5. It gets too many people, but we like to start out with 3. And the inputs in the spreadsheet are straightforward. You have your demographics, things like household income and age. You have the situation. To me, this is, I think, where it gets really juicy. Things like, what does your target audience care about? Like, what's a priority for them? What's a challenge? What's a pain point? What's maybe an objection to your app or your product or your service? Then you have some basic stuff around sources, like where do they spend their time? And then we get as detailed as even making up quotes. It's a little bit of make-believe. It gets a little bit creative, but like, what is something that they would actually come out of their mouth? What are they thinking about? How can we tap into them even more? And I'll go through a really quick example. So the spreadsheet that we're using today is from a startup out of Longmont, R.O.I. Vans. And I'm going to leave this information in here, even when we send this spreadsheet out, because it's helpful to kind of see like what a final one looks like. So for example, let's talk about John. I'm guessing everyone here knows somebody like John since he lives in Frisco. But John, so he lives in Frisco. He makes a pretty healthy living. He's an avid rock climber. So like he goes to work, he's a developer. He spends his afternoons or his evenings at Movement. On the weekends, he's up in Vail. It's right down the street from me. And he has a girlfriend, Jess, who also loves the outdoors. He's 36. And in terms of his priorities, he's ready to explore, right? He's not like looking for a vacation. He's not like coming to Ross Monster Vans and saying like, hey, I want this luxe vacation. I want this weekend getaway. He's just ready for the adventure. His big plan is he wants to head out to Moab and he wants to go on a mountain bike trip. His challenge is John's a super planner. So he needs, if he's going to rent a van, it needs to be available the exact weekend he has lined up on the calendar. His pain points is that there's so many adventures on the list. Like, why should he prioritize Moab right now? And then his objections are really around, is if I rent a van from Ross Monsters right now, is it rugged enough to get where I'm going? Or if I'm going to spend all my time on my bike, why should I put all this money into renting a van? And again, these are a little bit hypothetical unless you have a big customer base, which you can tap into to draw a lot of these insights. This comes from looking on Instagram. It comes from a brainstorming exercise to think about, how do I tap into these people? And we even get more specific. You can kind of see, he read Shoe Dog, he likes Gary Vee, he spends his time on Open Snow, things like that. So you build out your customer personas, and then you can move to the next tab in the spreadsheet. This is where we talk about the journey. And this is really critical as we get back into our slides and we start thinking about acquisition channels and tactics that you can run from a marketing perspective. And so we just build on those personas. We think about, okay, what is that path to purchase? How do we get them to be aware of our brand? And then how do we nudge them down that path to consider purchasing or installing our app or becoming a lead? And then what do we do at that decision point? When that person is ready to make a decision, what type of marketing tactics do we run? And so again, it's thinking about what are their objections at each stage, and then like what is a common action that they might take. So again, if we use John and we're thinking about awareness, consideration, decision, and these steps might happen really fast. Say if you're a mobile app, they might happen in one instance. They might happen, they see your Facebook ad, they go to the app store and they download your app and then they open it up. That happened in 30 seconds. Or say you're B2B SaaS, that cycle's long. It could be like 30 days, 60 days. They might have to come back to your website 15 times before they sign up for a demo. So you're thinking about that process. And if we use Ross Monster Vans, again, in this example, through awareness, consideration, decision, it might be they've decided in the awareness stage, they're like, we're itching to get out. We want to go on a trip. We don't really know what that looks like, but we're eager to start planning one. And so again, you can go through motivations, like what questions they might have. And a question would be like, what's something unique we should try, right? And an action that they might take in the awareness stage before they know anything about your brand is start scrolling through Instagram, right? Trying to figure out what their friends have been up to or what other trips people are going to, or maybe they follow some accounts that they feel inspired about. And that's going to help you think about, how do I make sure I have marketing tactics and I'm leveraging the right channels at every single stage that somebody is searching for my product, or I'm trying to get them to learn more about it. And you can go through that same process at consideration and that decision. And then you can kind of look down at your map and say, am I heavy in the awareness stage? Which my guess is for everyone on this call, you're gonna be super heavy in the awareness stage because you're a startup founder or you have a small business and you're trying to get the word out. And then you're going to start thinking about things like retargeting and tactics that are guiding somebody down that funnel. Okay, those are the first two tabs that we fill out. And that's pretty key before you even start thinking about a tactic. So before you think about like Facebook or LinkedIn or SEO, it's getting really clear about who you're selling to and then what are the stages that they go through in order to make a decision when they land on your website or your product or your app. We're going to jump back into the slides to talk about tactics and experiments, and then we'll come back here to bring it full circle. So the second step in the process, right? So it's like you've got your personas and you've got your journey, is to pick the right acquisition channels to test. This is so critical. It's easy to spend time and money and energy on the wrong channels. And so in order to understand which ones you want to test first, it's really key to just have an understanding of the acquisition channels in general. And again, the more you can start understanding what acquisition channels actually exist, you can think about which ones might be right for your target audience, which is why you can't think about tactics or marketing experiments until you really flesh out those customer personas. And so what I have here are just some notes on acquisition channels, and then we're going to pull up another spreadsheet that we use internally to think about channel selection. So the big things to note before we look at the individual channels is how to think about marketing channels or acquisition channels. And there's kind of three core components to any channel. It's volume, how many people are on the channel. It's targeting, can I get in front of the people that I care about? And then it's CAC. So CAC would be cost of acquiring a customer, but it could also be CPI, so cost per install, or it could be CPL, cost per lead, or CPS, cost per sale. It's just like, how expensive is it to get somebody to take an action that I care about? And if you have those three things to evaluate a channel, it's going to make it a lot easier to go through the list and be like, I'm going to spend my time on these ones, and then I'm not going to waste my time on these other ones. So the first one is volume, really straightforward, right? So how many people are on that channel to begin with? So for example, like these ones up here at the top, and Instagram's looped in here with Facebook, but Google, Facebook, YouTube, obviously the most popular channels in terms of volume. And if I think about Tufts client base, I'd say like 95% of all of our clients are on those three channels because they're the biggest. That's where everyone is. But there's a lot of other smaller channels you can test out too. I would say the thing when it comes to volume is the more volume, typically the better. unless you have a really niche audience. Typically when there's more people on a channel, it's cheaper to get in front of them and it's easier to get in front of them. And that brings you to targeting. So this is all about how easy is it to get in front of somebody that you care about. And a silly example that I like to think back to a lot is just around like LinkedIn. So if you're a company that's selling dog food, right, you're not going to advertise on LinkedIn because it is impossible to target dog owners on LinkedIn, right? So when you're thinking about channel selection, it's all about, okay, what are the targeting capabilities? And can I get in front of the people in my tab 1 customer personas? If you can't reach those people, you probably don't want to waste your time there. If you can, that's probably a channel you want to hunker down on. In terms of targeting, and for the majority of, I'd say, the marketing channels available, 2 types of targeting. The first is discovery based. Why we have our big Broncos fan here, I could target him. On channels that are discovery based, I can go find this Broncos fan and I can get my ads in front of them. And this type of targeting is just when you deliberately go out to find people and you put your ad in front of them. So this could be like Facebook, this could be YouTube, this could be Instagram, those types of channels. The second type of targeting that's most common is intent-based. And so this is when somebody is a little bit further down that funnel. So when we go back to our customer journey up here and we think about awareness and consideration, they've decided already that they're starting to take an action about something. So the example I have here, I just typed into Google, best Shopify themes, right? So as the person typing that in, there's some level of intent that's being shown. Like, I'm looking for a Shopify theme. I'm looking for a website solution. I'm trying to figure out the best one. I'm already aware of a problem that I have, and now I'm just trying to find the best solution. So this is something like Google or Google Shopping or Bing or Quora. Like, I have this problem already and I'm taking an action. And then the last thing, so again, it's volume, it's targeting. Can I get in front of the people that I care about the most? And then it's how much money do I have? And if you don't have any money, that's okay, right? You're going to start with the channels that don't cost any money. But you want to early on have a really good understanding of how much can you afford to acquire a customer or an install or a lead or a client. And that's going to be your CAC. And typically when your lifetime value or your CAC is higher, you have way more options because you can spend more money actually getting somebody to take the action that you care about. And so if you have a really, really low cost per sale, say you're selling a $10 product on a Shopify site, you're not going to have as many options as if you're a B2B SaaS company that charges a customer $3,000 a year. You're going to have a lot more. You could go to LinkedIn, you could go to Google, you could go to multiple channels. And so just having a really clear understanding of what your CPI or CAC or how much money you can spend getting somebody to take an action is going to help you think about channel selection. Another spreadsheet, super handy. This is one that we use at Tough. A lot of this stuff, and I'll jump right into it, is kind of like up here, right? Because we've worked on 50 plus accounts and 50 different partners. But it's still really handy just to think about the channels. And again, we have these evaluation criteria layered on with some just like internal notes from our team. So you have your channel, you have your average cost per click. So it's not a CAC for us because we work with a lot of different industries. So we'll work with mobile app companies and B2B and e-commerce, DTC. So we really think about how expensive is traffic from those sources. And then we have our volume, again, that first criteria, and then some targeting notes around who this channel is right for. And this can be a good cheat sheet. It's not one size fits all, but it's backed by a lot of years of running a lot of campaigns on all of these channels. And so you can start to look at things like, all right, Snapchat. It's pretty cheap to get a click. It's definitely growing in popularity. It's not super high volume, meaning the competition's probably not really aggressive. But it's really just, it's great for younger demos and DTC brands or apps, right? So if you don't fall into one of those categories, you can kind of just put that to the side right now. Or like another one you could look at is Twitter. We have a lot of startups who come to us and have seen some good organic traffic on Twitter, and they're anxious to fire up Twitter ads. But you can see it's like the cost per click, it's like $3. It's an expensive place to be. The volume is low. That's because not a lot of advertisers are on there. And it can work really great. We've seen with like massive brands with really big budgets who have a huge retargeting pool. And this kind of goes on and on. You can look at each channel. You get the YouTube, Google Shopping, like Google Display. Almost everyone should be on Google Display. Google Shopping, anybody who's selling e-commerce should be there. And it's a good place to start when you're just trying to wrap your head around. I feel like there's 1,000 marketing channels. Where should I start first? So I would keep this guy handy, and there's a lot of resources out there like that. The next couple of slides, and we're going to get through these and then we're going to hop back into our spreadsheet for those last 2 tabs, is once you've thought about a channel, now you need to get to the fun creative part, right? Which is, what is that tactic? And a tactic is just a test that you run on a channel. And I'm going to share some of my favorites. And they're really designed to test something super specific on an individual channel. These probably won't all be the right tactic for your business, but it should help you start to think about how to think about tactic selection and which channels might be best for you, so we can jump back into that growth process framework and give you a game plan to walk away with for the next couple of months around the channels you want to test or the experiments you want to run. The first one is create SEO optimized landing pages for local searches. This is one of my absolute favorites, and you can see it sits in the awareness stage. And the channel, you could say, is maybe organic. You could call it SEO as well. And with this tactic, what you can do is you can start to think about what are the common searches that people have, that my target audience, tab 1, has when they're searching around. And it could be a variety of different things. So like right here, I have a screenshot from All Trails, or let's look at HipCamp. HipCamp is a great example, right? It's kind of like the Airbnb of outdoor camping, right? And so the screenshots that I have down here, they've built probably 300 pages that aggregates things around camping in California, camping in Oregon, camping in Pennsylvania. And the reason that they have done that is because they know people are searching that. People want to know camping in California. They want to know camping in Colorado. And so they put it in their footer and they build out a bunch of these pages because they know the more pages that you have, if you organize them, the more likely you're going to get people landing on your website. And these aren't key to the customer journey. You won't go to HipCamp and these aren't front and center. They're jammed in the footer. And that's because they know the common path is not somebody comes to our website and then they're thinking about camping in California. It's really early in the journey. It's in the awareness stage. And this is what happens when you can build clusters and landing pages around specific categories that relate to your business. When I go into Google and I type in camping in California, the second result is HipCamp. That's an organic result. They're not paying for that whatsoever, right? And so they're getting all these people that don't know anything about HipCamp coming to their website and seeing all these options for camping in California, right? So it's a really good organic strategy that you can start right away. And you can do it, you don't like that, that's a very local example. And on these slides, when you get them, like All Trails, again, it's tiny on here, but it's local. So this would be like, you know, like Rever out here in Eagle is a great example. They're local based. You can do this with services or product features too. So here's another example of that. This is from Client Boost. Client Boost is a marketing agency. They're very big. And you can see in their footer, they have a whole bunch of these pages as well, right? So they have them organized by theme. But these SEO developed landing pages, they're like custom landing page design or conversion optimization agency. And the reason they're doing that is if you go back to our flow and the customer journey, they're trying to get people in this awareness stage. So they want to get people who are searching that, who don't know anything about Client Boost, they want to come up. And so even here, and again, it's kind of small, let me blow this up a bit. When I go over to Google and I type in landing page company, they come up second, right below HubSpot, which is a massive brand, right? And they've done a lot of work of thinking about who are our customers and what are those questions that they have? And then how do I go build content and landing pages around that? So that could be a great tactic to test. This one's even more straightforward. If you're getting traffic to your site you should definitely be doing retargeting, not just on Facebook, but really any of your channels. And again, so it goes back to that customer journey and flow. The tactic that we just looked at in terms of building out SEO landing pages was in our awareness phase, and retargeting of any type, especially Facebook retargeting, would sit in your decision. So starting to think about your tactic based on the user journey is really critical. So that's why we even write those things down. So a Facebook retargeting campaign would sit in the decision stage and the channel would be paid, right? And you've all been retargeted. If you've ever gone to an e-commerce website, you've probably got hounded almost obnoxiously. But it's a great way to get somebody, especially if your awareness, consideration, and decision journey is longer, it's a great way to get somebody back, right? Something like 98% of all visitors that come to your product or come to your website aren't going to do anything. So how do you take that 98% and get them back to your website? So again, retargeting could be an awesome tactic. Now we have our search campaigns on Google. I paired retargeting and Facebook and Google kind of in the same flow because almost everyone should be running these types of campaigns. So running a search campaign on Google would sit in our consideration stage. And that goes back to the type of targeting that we talked about, right? Intent-based. They've decided they're looking for something and they need an answer to it. And so you could put this tactic in the consideration phase and the channel is paid. Some pretty good examples, right? So like best meditation app. You can see a lot of people on here bidding for a keyword like that. And so thinking through, okay, what are people searching that are relevant to my business and bidding on that. And what's nice with something like Google, because it's intent-based targeting, that's a more high quality click, right? They're in the mind state of I'm trying to find a solution or I'm trying to find something. And so when you deliver the results to them, they click on it, they're much more likely to take an action that you care about. Let's see, I think I only have 11 in here. So I'll try to go through quickly so we can jump back into our spreadsheet. A referral program, we've seen this work for almost every type of business or industry. It's easy to do and it's low cost. But any way that you can incentivize an army of people to go and spread and be your sales force, the better. And what's fun about this particular tactic is that it sits in 2 stages, right? In the awareness and the decision. It's almost like a loop, a growth loop, which we really like to talk about. So again, we even put the channel on this guy as a viral loop. But anytime with the referral program, right, it's 2 things. You're getting awareness from new people. You're also speeding up a decision, especially if you're giving that person who is doing the referring a reward. So you could even put this tactic in 2 different stages of that customer life cycle. This one's so easy. You could do this afternoon. It's not the most glorious. It's not the coolest piece of marketing you're ever going to see. But you can create a co-branded piece of content. The stage on this one would be awareness and the channel would be a partnership. And so the big thing, especially as an early stage brand, and if you don't have a large community, finding like-minded brands that already have a community that is similar to yours is a great way to go find a giant group of people that could be customers or could be users versus say Facebook, where you have to run ads and bring people in one by one. A brand that I think does an incredible job with this, a local Colorado brand, is our friends at Topo Design. This is an e-commerce example, but you see it with B2B, you see it with apps, you see it all the time. And again, the thinking here is that Danner has an audience, Topo has an audience, they come together and that audience just got 2 times as large with one action, right? And so immediately you find this big community of people that already exist. Guest posts, again, as a founder, if you don't have any money to spend on ads, this is a grind, but it can be really effective to get more traffic to your product or to your site. So again, when you guest post, this tactic would sit in the stage of awareness and the channel would be content. And some good examples, like we even do this very actively at Tough. We go find, we write really high valuable content, and then we partner with brands where our community already exists. So for us, this is a company called Workable, which is a hiring tool. And a lot of startups and a lot of founders who are growing or just got some investment go to Workable to use their tool to start hiring. So we write content for them, right? Gives us a really strong backlink, but it also gets us in front of an audience that already exists that we care about. Ooh. Email series, this one's a no-brainer. Probably the most cost-effective marketing channel that exists still today. Even if your inbox is really flooded and you don't like getting these emails, the data backs it. It's cost effective. And it could be emails that are, say, for e-commerce, and it's like abandoned cart, or you're trying to get somebody back. It could be an onboarding flow for a meditation app. You want to get people through a series and want them to become a customer. And so the stage here is consideration, and the channel is email. I have a lot, at Tough, we go back to a lot of brands that have inspirational emails. I think Chubby's, I would sign up for their stuff if you're in the e-commerce space. They do a great job of making you smile, but getting you back to their website. A few more tactics in here. So we have 8, offer a discount for an email, especially if you're a newer brand and you're trying to make sure that you get as much information about the people who are on your site as possible. It's easy to offer a discount. There's different ways that you can do that, right? It could be like a percentage-based discount. It could be a dollar value. It could be free shipping. It could be a free gift. Each one of these would be its own tactic, right? So really getting clear on what you think the most value is important. And again, it sits in the consideration and decision phase. If you're collecting an email, they've already gotten to your website, so they already know about you, and you're just trying to nudge them down that funnel to consideration, to decision, to actually pull out their credit card and do something that you care about. And so the channel is email, and some really good examples, right? There's creative ways you can do this. With e-commerce, you see this spinny wheel, which seems to be very on trend these days. You spin this wheel, you get X% off, you give them their email, and they email you, and oftentimes you make a purchase. And this applies really across businesses. A partner of Tough's Cloud Campaign, kind of combining SEO with collecting an email. So Cloud Campaign, you can use their tool as an agency to white label social media services. And so what they've done is they said, okay, what other challenges do small business owners and agency owners have? And one of those challenges happens to be they have no idea how much they should charge their clients for social media services. So they created a calculator to help you figure out how much you should charge. And in order to use that calculator, you have to give them your email. I think the good lesson here, and why I love this example so much, is they started with who is our target audience and what problems do they have that we can solve. And then they provided something really valuable in return to get emails. So a great tactic. Couple more, we're getting through it. Number 9, this one's just kind of hacky, which we don't use that word too much at Tough because you can't hack your way to growth. You can run a lot of experiments and see which ones are working, but there's no overnight hack. But one thing you can do is if you do have an email list, say you're e-commerce, you're B2B, and you've been growing that email list, don't be afraid to take anybody who you send out an email, anybody who didn't open that email, put them into another group and resend them a different email. It's a great way to just increase your engagement rates from unopened emails, because most of the time, those people just didn't even see it in their inbox. So again, the stage on this guy is consideration, and the channel is email. And I'm going to keep saying those things, stage and channel, because again, when we jump back into that spreadsheet, it really starts to get crowded, and you really need to think about your customers and which priorities you want to do first. This guy's super easy. I would remember, like, we do this at Tough. Almost all of our partners do this at Tough. But respond to R.O.I questions. This is just ask a reporter, and essentially you get emailed every week or every day, depending on how you sign up. I get emailed 3 times a day. So does the team at Tough. And it's a free service that provides journalists this like really massive and robust database for upcoming stories. So they can ask questions, and in your inbox, you can pull it up and you can respond to those questions. So when they're related to your business or they're related to your service, you have an opportunity to respond. Oftentimes that results in a backlink, which is great for driving traffic to your website. And you can kind of see what that looks like. So here's one from a couple days ago that popped up in my inbox. I subscribe to their business and finance queries. This is the morning edition, and you can kind of see how it's laid out, right? They're just asking for questions, and they want experts, or they want people to respond, business owners, founders to respond. And then as a result, you start to get backlinks, and you need backlinks to drive traffic to your site. And so here's some examples. John, a growth marketer on our team, responded to something about PPC audits, and there's our website front and center. Chris, the other day, again, talked about something PPC related. There's a link right back to our website. A great way to drive traffic. Last but not least, and then we're going to get back into our spreadsheet, is a roundup post. you could do this one in an hour. It's not the coolest piece of marketing, but it's really effective. Go figure. The stage on this is awareness and the channel is content. All a roundup post is you think about your industry and then you put a whole bunch of people on a list. So for example, if we go all the way back to our hip camp example, where it was like camping in California, a good roundup post for them might be something like 15 of the most popular campsites in California. And you can do this by service, you can do this by industry. One of the companies in the same space as Tough does this all the time, right? So here's an example, 25 best Shopify agencies in 2020. Or maybe you have meditation app, 25 of the best meditation apps in the US. You know, you can come up with a lot of these, and just thinking about which ones are most relevant to your business is a great tactic to drive some initial traffic to your website or your products, especially if you don't have a lot of money to spend on ads. All right, finally time. So we looked at, okay, how do I evaluate a marketing channel and know if that's right for my target audience? And then how do I think about a tactic that I want to run, something very specific you want to test on a particular channel? And that's where the growth spreadsheet comes back into play. So we have our last two tabs, tactics backlogs and experiments. Your tactics backlog is where you're going to start writing down all those brilliant ideas that you have in terms of how you're going to go from 0 to 100 and 100 to 10,000. And so you can see, write a roundup post, run Facebook retargeting, launch display, create common routes. There's all different types of tactics. And the way that you use this tab is you put down your idea. Let's use this guy just for simplicity. You're gonna write a roundup post and then put some notes on your hypothesis. Like why is it worth your very valuable time to work on a roundup post? And so you kind of think about, okay, what can we expect in return for this? Then you think about your stage. So where is it in terms of the customer lifecycle? And then what channel is it? Oops. And then the last two pieces in here are really important. And they're important because you're a founder with limited resources and limited time. Even as your team grows and you're 30 people, you still have to figure out, what do I need to work on today that's going to have the biggest impact on my revenue? And so that's where these guys come, impact and ease. And this is your best guess. For us, we have a lot of experience with this, so our guesses are a little bit more accurate. But you can start to think about, how much effort is it going to take me to do this, and what can I expect in return? So, for example, a roundup post, we gave it a score of 2 in terms of ease because it's really, really easy, and it's effective. So we gave it a 5. Then there's things like creating those SEO optimized landing pages, and we gave it a 10/10. It's incredibly effective, and it takes a lot of time, and it's hard to do. And so you want to start having this evaluation criteria to think about, what can I actually get done and what can I execute on well. If we go back to Dave and the Cheesecake Factory, you don't want to start chasing 100 things at once, because your execution will be poor and you'll never get data back to understand if any of these tactics or channels will work for your business. And so by using this framework, you can start to think about, what is worth my time, what is worth my investment, and what is most likely going to succeed. So again, you put all your ideas in here, and it's nice. It's also, you know, as a founder myself, I have ideas I want to chase all the time, right? And even just having a place to put those ideas, put those tactic ideas down on paper, it houses them in a place that you can go back to. And if you still like that idea in 2 weeks, give it a go. And if you still like that idea, move it to your experiments tab. This guy's empty for the time being, but essentially what happens is, whether it's you or you're sitting with your team, you look through your ideas and you're like, okay, what do we want to focus on for the next 30 days? Or set whatever reasonable time period feels right for your business given priorities. Sometimes it's as short as a week. What's the one tactic we want to test this week? Sometimes it's, what are the 3 tactics we want to test this quarter? And you're going to take that tactic idea and you're going to move it over to your experiment tab. And it can live in here pretty much forever. But you're going to have your experiment, what the hypothesis is, the stage, the channel, who on your team's owning it. When Tough first started out 3 years ago, these all said Ellen. Now they don't, and it's great. And you'll get to start spreading stuff out to other really smart people. You have your status, your start date, your target result, and then you can keep your results in here with a verdict. Like, would I do this again? Should we keep doing it? Should we scale it up? Or should we kill it? You're gonna have a lot of experiments in this tab that you're gonna kill, and that's great, right? You're having a decision and you're abandoning an idea, right? And it's going to free up more time to focus on the things that matter most and that bring your business more revenue or more customers. And then you can just have notes and related material. And it's kind of an iterative process that you can go back to again and again and again. And that brings us pretty much full circle. A few more slides, and we're going to do it in our 45 minutes. That this whole process is meant to give you a framework as a founder to think about what you want to test first. You're not going to, all the tactics that you run, you're going to find some winners and you're going to find some really big losers. But you need a process to evaluate which ones you want to test first and how you look at the data to make decisions about the next one. And so we can go back. We want to be the cheeseburger. A good little screenshot from Rocky Mountain Taco out here in Vail. Always makes me drool. But we want to stay focused. We can't chase 10 different acquisition channels at once. We want to test 2 to 3. We want to figure out if they work, and then we want to scale those up to get from 0 to 100. And that's where this process, right? So it goes, you fill out the growth marketing framework spreadsheet, you identify the tactics that you want to test, and then start lean. Don't take on too many at once because you want the execution to be really solid. Scale up the ones that work and kill everything that doesn't. And that's just a successful way to think about what channels you want to test first and how to keep you focused on the right ones. That's all I had today. A few more quick notes. So again, I skipped over this because I wanted to get into the juicy bits, but I'm the founder at Tough Growth Marketing. I'm based here in Eagle, Colorado. Our team is pretty small. We're fully remote, spread across the US. If you have any questions on today, we want to look at a growth marketing strategy together, you can check us out at toughgrowth.com. You can also email me at ellen@toughgrowth.com. You can also follow along. We are slowly launching a YouTube channel here that talks about this very process, but just on the tactics. So you can see we have a few videos up there already, and they're only like 5 to 6 minutes each, and they're all kind of by different team members at Tough. And they are just about testing and experimenting and trying a new tactic and adding a new plugin to a Shopify site and seeing what happens, or updating an email flow. So you can follow along here as well if you're curious to see what we're testing and you need some good ideas. And last but not least, if you come out to Eagle, please let me know. We don't need to do this. It was my favorite thing to do in Eagle. And so I moved to Colorado to get on my mountain bike more and to run a team that I love and care about. But if you're out in Eagle, hit me up. We can go bike, shred the trails, or we can just go to Color Coffee and talk marketing as well. I think that is it for today. And I think we're supposed to open it up to Q&A. I see some of your faces on here, but not many. Thumbs up from the faces I see, hopefully. Thumbs down. Yeah, got some good thumbs up. Cool. Let me stop sharing and dig into these. Oh, we're still here, Kayleen. All right, I see some chats. Cool. I don't think any questions. Does anyone have questions? Let's get into it. You could chat them if you want to, if you don't want to say them out loud.
I have a question. And I'm sorry, I did come in late, so I might have missed this. But for a very new venture, where do you think the best starting place is? Like, where do you think it is, like, to when you have a very low workforce, where do you suggest the best place to start is?
I think the very first place you should start is building your organic traffic. It's the most important thing you can invest in now, and it is the hardest. It is a schlep. You're going to do a whole bunch of work in terms of building out content and getting backlinks and making sure that your website or product is optimized, and it's really hard and it takes forever, but it's compounding, right? It doesn't take as much money as other ad channels, and once you set that foundation after 6 months, it's going to build and it's going to build and it's going to build and it's going to build, and it's the best thing that you can do now.
Cool, thank you.
Somebody talked about YouTube ads. Debbie, we love YouTube at Tough. It can be really effective if you have a niche product or a niche brand, because targeting is really easy. So like video games, if you sell video games, you can go target gamers, right? So if you're really clear and you have a niche audience, it can be great. YouTube can also be really effective at retargeting. So if you're already getting a lot of site traffic, getting them back with YouTube can be awesome. And then if you're a larger brand and you're just focused on awareness and you have big budgets, YouTube can be incredibly fantastic because so many eyeballs are on there. And then the last thing I would say about YouTube is it goes back to the growth marketing framework. Who is your audience? If you're targeting 25 to 55-year-old men, you might want to explore YouTube. If you're not, I wouldn't put any money into that channel right now.
Hey, Ellen, I have a quick question. First of all, thank you. This is awesome. The R.O.I thing is completely new to me and looks really cool.
Gotta
just
do it.
First glance.
You'll love it.
Do you like want a bunch of people on your team to do it? Can you do you run the risk of stepping over each other? Or how do you guys approach that?
It's similar to kind of what I was talking about with SEO. It's kind of just like you need some time to devote to it. And so like at Tough, the way we have it set up is everyone gets 3 emails a day. And sometimes I delete them. Sometimes I have a minute between meetings and I'll go look at it and I'm like, oh, they're asking something about Facebook ads. I can chime in on that. I think the more eyeballs you have on it, so if you have a team, just experimenting with it, like I'd put it as a tactic. I would do it for like 30 days, try to respond to like 1 a day and see what happens. And if you get some good results, then you can kind of build out that process and scale it.
So you have the ability to focus. You get emails based upon, I assume, your focus. And if we have different
categories.
Team members, okay, awesome, very cool. Thanks for that nugget.
Yeah, it's good. Anything else? I think a big thing is I want to make sure if you liked the spreadsheets today that you get access to all this stuff. So I got to loop in with our friends hosting this incredible event and figure out how we do that. But if you want them sooner rather than later, just ping me on LinkedIn or shoot me an email. Sound good? Thanks for spending your lunch hour with me. I appreciate it.
Very cool.
Have a great afternoon. Yep. Bye.